Hey friends, welcome back to my kitchen. If you're new here, my name is Jen. I do cooking and canning videos, and sometimes I post garden content. If that seems like the sort of thing that you'd be into, I hope that you'll consider subscribing and sticking around. Today I have a quick and easy recipe for y'all. It is a crock pot or slow cooker chicken stew. Now, I don't know what the weather is looking like where you live, but here in Western Kentucky, we are currently experiencing our fake thaw. It is a fake spring that we get about the same time every year, and the weather is just beautiful. It was 70 degrees on this day. So there are other things I would rather be doing than standing in the kitchen cooking all day, so crock pot recipes are perfect for that. Now for this, I used about 4 pounds of chicken breast and I just cubed it up. It was still partially frozen, so it was really easy to kind of cut into 1 inch cubes. Optionally, if you don't mind to dirty up another pan, you can coat your chicken in flour and then brown it in a skillet with a little bit of olive oil and then add it to your crock pot. But because I just really didn't want to be in the kitchen, I just completely bypassed that step and I added all of my chicken pieces to the crock pot directly, and then I seasoned it generously with salt and pepper. I'll never give you measurements for salt and pepper because everyone's palate isn't the same. I really enjoy black peppers, so I go pretty heavy on that. You may not enjoy that so much, so just season it with salt and pepper to your tastes. I'm going to give this a really good mix to make sure all of this chicken gets a little bit of that salt and pepper. If you're taking the extra step to brown your chicken in a skillet, season it with salt and pepper before you toss it with flour. That way you make sure that your chicken has that salt and pepper stuck to it before you brown that flour onto it. Now you'll see here as I'm mixing this, I don't get all of the flour incorporated. Some of it does stick to the bottom of my crock pot, but I'm not really concerned about that because this is going to cook on high for about 4 or 5 hours and all of that flour is going to come loose and it's just going to help thicken the sauce to the stew. Now, in this bowl here, I have about 4 or 5 large russet potatoes that I've peeled and cubed. You can use any kind of potato you like. This is 2 stalks of celery that I diced up, 3 large carrots, and 2 large onions. You want it all to be about the same size so that it all cooks about the same rate. And then I also have about 5 cloves of garlic here that I just went ahead and ran through my garlic press, but you can just dice it up if you prefer. I'm going to add a couple of large bay leaves to this pot. I'd say if your bay leaves are big, use 2. You can see here that I threw 3 in there. That's because a couple of them were kind of small. I'm also going to use a couple of teaspoons of dried thyme. And these seasonings are, of course, optional. Add as much or as little as you like. If you don't prefer thyme, you can leave it out. That's fine. And then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of dried rosemary as well. And I'm just going to give this a little bit of a crush in my hand before I add it so they're not such big pieces. Rosemary adds a really nice flavor, but it can be a little fibrous when you're eating your stew and you bite down on a big piece of rosemary. And then this seasoning is completely optional, but I like a little bit of spice and a little bit of heat, so I'm just putting a little sprinkle of red pepper flake in there. You don't have to, but if you like heat, I suggest at least just a little bit of red pepper flake. It just adds a little something extra. Now I'm going to add about 6 cups of chicken stock. You can use turkey stock, you can use vegetable stock. I suggest just using whatever you have. If all you have is, the chicken bouillon powder, mix it with 6 cups of water and add that. That will be fine. Just try to use something flavored like a broth or a stock because it adds another layer of flavor to your stew and makes it a little bit more richer. I'm just stirring this really well to try to make sure that chicken and vegetables are all incorporated. The seasonings are spread out around the pan. I'm not going to be fooling with this crock pot for several hours. When you're using a crock pot, the golden rule is to leave it closed because when you open your crock pot to stir things or check on it, it loses heat and that makes what you're cooking take longer. So just give it a really good stir, pop the lid on it, put it on high, and walk away for about 4 or 5 hours. I actually let this go for about 5 hours. And at this point, I'm going to come back and give it a stir and I'm going to sort of check the tenderness of the vegetables. And when everything is just about done, I'll pick out all of the bay leaves. Now, I know I only showed me taking out one, but I promise I found them all. It just took a while. I'm adding a cup of milk to this and 2 cups of frozen peas. Now, if you wanted this to be even richer, you could substitute the cup of milk for half a cup of heavy cream. But I'm going to stir all this together and I'm going to let this sit for just a little while and simmer so that these frozen peas can come up to temperature. If you don't like peas, feel free to substitute them for something else you like. There's really no rules written in stone to stew. If you're eating it, it should have the things in it that you enjoy to eat. So, by all means, substitute out vegetables if there are some things in here you don't like. Now, at this point, your stew is done. But if you're like me, I like my stew to be very thick and creamy. So I went ahead and made a cornstarch slurry and added that and stirred it really well to make sure that none of the cornstarch was stuck to the bottom. If you've never made a slurry before, it's just a couple of tablespoons of cornstarch to a tablespoon, maybe a little more of water, and you mix it until combined. And then you just let it simmer in whatever you're trying to thicken. And after a couple of minutes, your soup or your stew will become rich and creamy, just like this. Now, when you're serving this, it would go really well with a nice crusty loaf of bread. I have a no-knead bread recipe. I will link a little card in the upper right-hand corner right here if you'd like to check that out. But I really hope that you give this recipe a try. It's perfect for this time of year when, the weather is starting to warm up and you might be like me, busy doing outside things, and you just need to have a meal ready at the end of the day for your family. Until next time, friends, happy cooking.